Sometimes the evidence is right in front of our face, and it's tough to, we want to argue with it because we have the things we like, we have the things that we know or we think we know, and we don't really want to accept the way trends are changing. And I feel this is kind of the case when you go into the large bookstore and you just look with your own eyes at what's happening with kind of YA kind of graphic novels and manga, and then traditional, let's call them big two independent US graphic novels. It's telling a pretty stark tale right now. And it's by volume. This isn't up to kind of interpretation. You can kind of see with your own eyes and do the count, and it tells a story. But it's not a story that a lot of us want to hear. But we probably need to talk about it anyway. Hey everybody, this is Perch. One of the things that I've started to do, and part of this is because I've had a comic store in the past, and I will have another comic store opened up in the very very near future. Hopefully, very 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 near future. Probably still 2021, but probably the very beginning of 2021, which is exciting. But one of the things I like to do is when I go into other shops, I observe. I check out, what is selling, what are people interested in, what kind of shelf space is being devoted to what, and kind of what time of activity is there. If there's shops that I go into with regularity, like I'm often sent on errands to get something at a Target, which is nearby, or if I go to the grocery store, I look at part of the observation I do is I look at things and I go, hey, this counter, this display hasn't changed in the last 3 weeks that I've been here. It's the same kind of stuff being marketed, same kind of stuff being advertised, and I pick up on that. I don't have a photographic memory or anything like that, but I do have a very quick way of kind of assessing and looking at this stuff and going, okay, this is new, this is not new, and so it stands out to me when things are changing. So I've gone to a lot of bookstores nearby, and in particular in my area, there's Barnes and Noble is a pretty popular book chain. It's doing fine. It's doing well, ish, as good as any retail is doing. You could tell it's not doing great because now they've started bringing more toys, and suddenly they're selling like Legos and all of this kind of stuff in Barnes and Noble, and it's not just books anymore. And that tends to be a good indication that the books themselves are not powerful enough to move inventory, so they need to branch out. That's fine. But one thing I've started to do is I just look at the comics that are on sale there, look at what is available for purchase. And what I can't help but notice is that the U.S. graphic novels have been steadily shrinking. And this isn't a subjective thing. This is there used to be 10 shelves, and now there is 6, and then now there is 3. And it's rapidly getting smaller. And at the same time, the manga shelves are getting larger and larger and larger. Now, disclaimer: I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, so this area that I live in has a higher than normal Asian population as opposed to other parts in the country. And it is a true fact. Somebody just got way too close to me. My God! It is a true fact that people who are that the Asian population tends to go for a lot of kind of food and reading material and other things that are familiar to them based on their culture. And not 100% by any stretch of the imagination, but I've lived in different parts of the country. I've lived in places with a heavy Latino population. I've lived in places with a heavy African American population and a heavy Asian population. Of those demographics, the Asian population tends to go for let's say manga and comics written in that region or produced in that region more than US comics. Whereas in other cases, like when I lived in a heavy Latin population area, there was not this desire to only go for comics being produced in South America or in Mexico. There was still plenty of crossover with Batman, Spider-Man, etc. Now I just put that disclaimer out there because manga is clearly doing very, very well in this part of the country. I don't know, in the Corona times, I can't tell you for certain what's going on in, Omaha and, Florida and New Jersey. I don't know. But at least from what I can observe with my own two eyes, and then when I talk to other people on the phone or, I talk to other retailers, there is an increased interest in manga. And the other piece that I've started to take more notice of is the YA kind of graphic novel section. And these are typically dominated by Scholastic, although there's some Penguin in there and a couple others. And these are not superhero brands. These are things like of course Rain and Telgemeier stuff, Dogman, Babysitter Club, that kind of stuff that is also growing. And what you could have just observed over the last 12 months or so is that the manga and the YA kind of content is growing very rapidly. It's rapidly taking over other parts of the store. Manga, even in kind of the last 3 months, has gone from, at least in one of the stores I frequent up here, 12 shelves to 20 shelves. And it is expanding. Now, I've mentioned this before, and people say, "Well, that's not an indication of anything. Are those books actually selling?" Well, I mean, I guess for this, I just have to rely on common sense, and I have to assume that if the bookstore that is struggling for business is expanding one area, it's because it's bringing in money. They're not just like waking up drunk in the middle of the night and going, screw it, let's put more manga in here. It's not selling, but I don't know, I try it. Nobody is doing that. It is expanding because it is selling. And anecdotally, when I go in and I look at these places, I see a lot of people hovering and grouped and buying out of this section. I also see turnover of product. When I go in like 2 weeks later, the stuff that's promoted on the end cap has changed, and there's different stuff there. Now, again, and some people have made this claim, maybe it's like store workers who are just shuffling this material around and nobody's actually buying it and they're just presenting the perception. That's true. I don't have access to their sales records, but at this point, I think you have to be kind of a nut to believe that there's not a correlation here. So, what's going on? I think this is telling us a couple interesting stories. I think number one, again, anecdotally, if I look at the YA section and the manga section, I start to look for things that are similar. And one of the things that's similar in both sections is that it's very easy to ascertain kind of what volume you're on. They're just you could tell what sells and what doesn't. You could tell where to go. The stuff is organized. The spines are clear. You have nice blocks worth of content. The Babysitter Club, which I've never read a single copy of ever. My younger daughter is very fond of it. There is a huge section there, and it's labeled and it's numbered, and I can see it even from a distance. I can see that's the Babysitter Club section, and over there is the Dogman section and the Captain Underpants section. And if I go over to manga, it's like there is the One Piece section, there is the Oh My Goddess section, there is the Naruto section, and it's very clear to tell this. When I go over to the U.S. graphic novel section, I see a complete just bonanza of just books everywhere. Different sizes, different formats. Sometimes things are labeled on the spine, sometimes not. It's really all over the place. And what's often also irritating is I look at it, and again, anecdotally, there's Amazing Spider-Man graphic novels. And then I look a little further down in the shelf, like two shelves over, and then there is Spider-Man in the S's and Amazing Spider-Man in the A's. And it's like, why is Spider-Man separated here? Why do we go from, Amazing Spider-Man to Ant-Man to Batman to a bunch of other things, then to Spider-Man, then to Superman? Why is it organized that way? And somebody made the comment to me online, hey, the people working that bookshop they're just going to alphabetize it. They're not going to go through the effort to group it by like Marvel and DC and all that stuff. Nobody's going to take that time. Except when I go over to the old manga section, I get, My Hero Academia right next to My Hero Academia Vigilantes, and it's all in one section, and it's not all over the place, and the stuff is grouped. And when I go to the YA section, I can see that there's groupings of both alphabetized and by author, and it's all put together very, very well. I also can't help but notice that the end caps and the little displays at the front of the store are, basically advertising, YA and manga. And there's nothing there for Marvel, except there was one little display in the store that had books about racism, and the Black Panther is there for some reason by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I, why that's in there in books about race? It's like right next to white fragility. I don't know what it's doing there, but okay, is this meant to be the same thing? Like I don't know. But that is to me, I think there are clear evidence. Again, this is just me walking into a store observing, and I encourage everyone else to do this too. But the other half of this story is, it's I give one of two reactions when I say this kind of stuff from people in the industry. Either reaction number one, which is more common, is, well, that's not common. That's not the experience in my store. And okay, I want to believe you, but then when I go into different stores, I see the same thing. When I talk to people in other states, a friend down in California sends me some pictures, and it's the same. Then I'm thinking, no, this is actually pretty much how it is. Or the second reaction, which is the less common reaction, but the more disturbing one, is, well, the reality is, superhero books are dying and people are less interested in capes, and this is why a lot of the Marvel and DC comic books have to die, and we need to get on to other things. And to that I have to say, but hang on a second. When I go over to the manga and I see this massive section for My Hero Academia, like, I'm not kidding you, it's like a shelf, one full floor to ceiling shelf of My Hero Academia, every volume, the spin-offs and everything else. And then over here is One Punch Man, and it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me superhero stuff's dead, but this stuff over here seems to be doing really, really well. And then I go over the YA section, and I've got Captain Underpants and Dogman that's doing really well. But you're telling me that Spider-Man is, nobody wants Spider-Man anymore? That doesn't seem right. And the conclusion I have to draw is there's plenty of interest in Spider-Man and Superman and Kate books, but there's no consistent, the people who are writing these books or putting out these books are not catching that new audience. They're not making stuff that people want to buy. I mean, I don't want to be negative about it. It's just, and granted, there's lots of people on this channel right now listening to this video who are very happy with the way comics are, with what DC and Marvel are putting out, and that's awesome. I don't look down on you. I don't think I'm glad you're finding something you like. But if you want to keep liking those things, if you want those comics to keep being produced, then these companies have to start producing some stuff that can sell at a mass market level. And it feels to me like they're getting killed. And while they're getting killed, we're getting the reaction of either, no, we're not actually getting killed, even though all evidence is starting to point to the contrary, or, well, people are just tired of this anyway, we're just riding it to the end. Which that's a terrible, terrible answer. I have to believe that if you went over to, Shonen Jump, or you get Oda-san and you said, hey, here you go. Here's Spider-Man. You figure it out for a while. Here, you get 5 years of Spider-Man. Do the best you can. I mean, does anybody want to go to Dab Pilkey and say, you know what? Nobody knows how to write Superman anymore. Here's Superman. See what you can do. See what you can do with it. I have a feeling that they managed to turn around a strong title. So I say all this from the standpoint of, what the hell, comic industry? I think your properties are good. I think many of the talents you have in your companies are also good. I know, I know people dislike various talents, but I think there's talent there. I think there's definite, the ability to tell a story, but you're getting your ass handed to you by these other groups. And at some point, I feel like you gotta go, hey, we can still win. We can still compete. We can still make a lot of money, but we're going to have to stop pretending that there's not a problem. We're going to actually have to start, figuring out what other people have done right. There's no shame in saying, hey, the things that we've been doing, largely the same since the 70s, maybe some of those things aren't good anymore, and we need to up our game. We need to change things. We need to invest more in how we're marketing and promoting our books. I don't know, you tell me. But there is absolutely tons of money in the comic industry. There is money to be had. There's absolutely interest. We can see it in these other things that are growing like mad. But and I think there is definitely interest in Batman and Spider-Man and Wolverine and Captain America and Superman, all those great brands that people love. I don't think you need to retire them. But you do need to start playing the game a little differently. Not with everything. You don't have to change everything. You don't even but maybe half of the things you do need to change. And by the way, that change should not be, hey, let's take Captain America but completely change the gender and ethnicity and the story writing and have Captain America eating food and let's tell a completely different Captain America story. And I say that because in the other genres, in manga and in YA, there are plenty of stories that are going for 10 years or more, telling the same stories they've been telling with the same characters they've been telling, and they've managed to figure it out. You don't need to radically change who your brand is, who your characters are, but you do need to start telling the story differently. To me, this isn't a question. This isn't a thing to kind of ponder over. This is a thing that stares us into the face, and that's why it's maybe one of those uncomfortable truths that people don't like to necessarily hear. But again, the facts are there, like they're right there. You tell me. Anyway, what I encourage you to do is don't listen to me. Don't agree or disagree or any of that stuff. What I encourage you to do is to go to your local bookstore. Yes, they still exist. I always love the smartass who's like, "Oh, there's still a bookstore. There's Barnes and Noble is still in business." Yes, it's still in business. Don't be a jackass. Um, Go and just observe and try and remove your own biases. Keep in mind the person is saying this, i.e., me. The content that I like the best, absolutely the best, is that thing that is now 3 shelves. I still, my money, my faith, my heart is still in Western U.S. graphic novels. Absolutely. No doubt about it. I love me some manga. I can't say the same thing for YA stuff, but it's not for me. It's not for me. But despite the fact that my bias is for the Western U.S. stuff, I can detect there is a problem here. And I think that's where if we note and we accept that there's a problem here, if we accept that we could be making more money, getting more than what we're currently getting, then that's the first step on the road to succeeding. And good news for us, there are examples in these other industries of stuff that's working out. So go take those ideas, man. Go steal those ideas. Make $1 million. That is the answer. Anyway, let me know what you think. I do encourage you, go check this stuff out. Observe. You will see the story for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Anyway, hey, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. I'm curious what you think about all this. But most importantly, thanks for listening.